So good morning again. I'm Roxanne Nava. I'm the city's Chief Small Business Officer. And actually, I want to take a minute to introduce the other people in our team here at the Small Business Center. We have Edwin Tumlos, who's with our Small Business Center, Geraldine Butler, who's with the Department of Public Health, and Chrissy, who's also with our office at the Small Business Center. And you just started. Elisa.
She's our new outreach girl.
Outreach girl.
As
of Monday. And this is actually really important for me to explain all this to you because we are one city and one Chicago. So while we are responsible for different things, we're all hands on deck all the time. And so it's in that spirit. So today it's really about Restaurant Week. And I just want to give you a little bit overview of really the mayor's commitment to small businesses overall. And the mayor has been a big champion of making sure that we are a partner and not an obstacle to businesses. And part of being a partner means we coordinate with other departments. It's not up to you to coordinate, it's up to us to coordinate on your behalf with other departments. And so that means planning, buildings, public health, and fire, and also the mayor's office. It also means the outside partners that we have. We partner with community and trade organizations that impact the hospitality industry. That includes your aldermanic offices, whether you need access to Capitol, the chambers, and the Illinois Restaurants Association. The list really goes on because we know that your business isn't just about you, and that we also know that we want you to know that there's an army next to you along with the challenge of starting your own business so that you can start and grow your own business. So one of the initial things that the mayor took on was a restaurant startup program, and that was really in listening to businesses. And so here at the Small Business Center, it is a one-stop shop. But one-stop shop doesn't necessarily mean one size fits all. But what it does mean is that for you as an entrepreneur, it's not a pass the buck. We're all here for you. And what that means is when you're looking for a location, we have a tool called Site Selector, where you can look. It's a totally free tool and it has mapping layers. So maybe you want to have your restaurant next to a school or a train. You could see that on this map. You want to know how is it zoned. You also maybe want to know, are there any TIF, any kind of incentives such as TIF? All of that is on the Site Selector tool, and it's all for free. The other aspect is concierge service. So when you come in here, you have one small business, you have a business consultant, and it's a relationship it's relationship driven. So it's not transaction oriented. Concierge service means you should expect and you will get high quality service when you come in for your license and permit. It's not, all right, well, that's good. It's you come first because we clearly know that our success as a city is dependent on your success. The next one is really the in-person consultation with the food sanitarian. So we have somebody that's in our office that does that, that's there in person, and then we'll look at all of that. We have somebody who does zoning, somebody who does that. And then there is a task force. When you open up your business, there is a task force of people to make sure the location and all the safety standards are there. And the task force coordinates with each other. It's not a siloed kind of communication for you or for the task force. So nobody's going to come in and say, one person say, put your chair here, another inspector's going to say, oh, no, move it over there. And as a business owner, you're stuck trying to figure out which way to go. As a task force, we work together in doing that. Then the other one is it's an optional base inspection for building construction inspection. So you can come in and get like a rough inspection beforehand. Maybe you're thinking about it like, am I ready or not? Before you get the final inspection. And it's just a good way to have, check out your site beforehand. Before I go over the process overview, one of the key things that starts off in the very beginning that I mentioned earlier was access to capital. So we know that license and permit, we're going to do a deeper dive of license and permit here, but the other aspect is you need cash. And friends and family can only go so far. And the mayor heard that, and what Mayor Ron Manuel did is he responded in a variety of ways. One is, and so I have actually that form, we have it up there, and it's called Need a Small Business Loan. And it's right up here, and part of a business loan is really a 3-step process. One is really planning for the cash flow, figuring out what your break-even point, how much money you need to keep going. And so these are all organizations that we work with who provide all these services for free. So the first one is organizations like the SBA and SCORE. This is one-on-one coaching. The next one is getting you credit ready. And what does it mean to get credit ready? Because as a business, you know your business, but you may not necessarily know, what kind of loans does this bank do? Does this bank do startups? Does this bank do restaurants? Sometimes you go in and it's not a happy feeling when you come out of the bank. And so these are 11 organizations that we have at the city who we've trained on how to get you credit ready. So they'll look at your credit history. It doesn't matter if you've got blemishes. The reality is we welcome them, right? So blemishes are okay on your credit history. It's okay to have to be a startup. It's okay to be in the restaurant industry. Because these are experts that know, based on where you're at and what you want to do, they know how to get capital. And capital could be a loan, it could be an investor, it could be helping you get a Kickstarter campaign, or it could be all the above. And what's great is that you don't go through the credit process alone. You go through it with an advocate. And these small business opportunity centers have shown a 75% acceptance rate. So when you work with them, rather than you getting on your own, they help you do every aspect of that. So they're your credit advocate. Assemble the loan documents. It could be so tedious. Very, very tedious process. They help you in doing every aspect of that. So then they know, for this amount, for what you're looking for, I know exactly who can do the loan. That's a big deal. The next one is actually getting connected with people that have cash. So we actually have a variety of partnerships when it comes to cash, whether it's a micro loan, something as simple as $500, and it goes up to $100,000. Now for a traditional bank, a bank really wants a loan that's in the $400,000 range. So $400,000, you have to have done a whole lot before you get up to a $400,000 loan. So under that, and that's where most businesses are at, 80% of them are at that level, under the $400,000 need, like that initial need in the first couple years. And so we have actually, the City of Chicago has given grants to 3 organizations, Acción Chicago, Neighborhood Initiatives, and Women's Business Development Center, given them money so that they can lend out in the community, because we're not the experts in that, they are. And so they lend out microloans from $500 up to $100,000. They have different credit, and again, they love imperfection, so to speak. It's like being a startup, having some credit issues, all of that, restaurant, they love it. The next one is the VEDC, Summer Corps. These organizations that do higher loans, like higher than $250, their minimum is usually about $50,000. They will look at equipment. One of them is really proud to say, we want to talk to you when the bank rejects you. And we're going to make that loan for you. And you want to talk to people like that, because they can see all the potential and they will work with you. So these organizations that we contract with, and this is actually a new program that the city started, really in listening to entrepreneurs in terms of what you need. So I want to make sure that you know that it's not just about getting your license and permit. We are going to do a deeper dive here, but we're partners with you in every aspect of the way. The other sheet that's there, because we heard from businesses that said, well, after I got my license, what's next? Geraldine pointed out some other organizations like the Law Project and so forth. So there's a one-pager over here that goes through everything, and I would just really keep it all the time. You could take a picture and screenshot it, or it's on our website as well. But you might want to get certified as a business. Maybe you want to find a location, or once you get started, we've got a boot camp through the Goldman Sachs program. All these are free services. Everything that we promote, these are all free services that are available for entrepreneurs, because we want to make sure that you know what's on the horizon as your business continues to grow. Because you think, I wish somebody would have told me about this. The boot camp is through Goldman Sachs, The Goldman Sachs runs a boot camp here for 16 weeks. Once you get 4 employees or more, 150,000 in sales, you apply for this program, and they help you do an accelerated growth plan for your business. And before you get to that level, we have other organizations that do stuff like if you don't have, you're a one-person shop and you don't have that. So we've got different boot camps depending on what stage you are in. We meet you where you're at. So, but a lot of that information is right here. This process overview, Edwin's going to go over what we want you to take away from this process overview is transparency. There's no, how do things get done here? We want you to have the roadmap up front so that you know the process of getting your license and getting your permit started and knowing all the resources that are available. That's big for Mayor Rahm Emanuel. As a business owner, you want to know, like, I want to know everything I'm getting into today, not on a need-to-know basis or as I go along. Oh, I didn't know I needed that. Somebody should have told me. No. We're all about transparency and accountability. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Edwin Tumlos, who will take you through the rest of the process. Is that good? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roxanne. And again, my name is Ed Tumlos. I'm a project manager here for the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. This presentation will be done in tandem. I'll be doing a deep dive on business licensing specifically for your needs. And then Jaren is going to be talking about the Department of Health requirements for that specific license. Now, the information that we'll be providing is actually also you can find in our restaurant startup guide, which you can find on our website. And we'll be printing it out and handing it out to you at the end of this course. So then that way you'll be listening to me instead of reading the program. Then that also too, we want to just let you know that we are videotaping this session, although you unfortunately will not be focused on because it's just going to be on us. But just to let you know that it is being videotaped, so that if you want to see it afterwards, in case you missed anything, or for those folks who couldn't make it, we hope that they can see it on our website. And then also we want to thank Cranes for being here today as well. She's coming here to photograph and document this event. So just as an FYI, she's here, and thank you, Cranes. So let's begin the process overview. Essentially, in a nutshell, what does it take to get a business license and start your restaurant? First and foremost, hopefully, if you haven't done so already, hopefully you have a business plan. Not that it's necessary for you to have a business plan in order for you to get a business license. However, more than likely, as Roxanne had started talking about, you might need financing to start this restaurant. And to do so, typically, the organizations that will do the financing will request a business plan. So either you can do it yourself, or you can buy one of the softwares that are out there, or actually we offer free courses or free workshop here so that we can walk you through the entire process. So that's one of the things you should keep in mind is have a plan. Then you can utilize the various neighborhood business organizations that are associated with us to assist you in your specific locales, because they are there for you, because they know the neighborhood, that's their job, and they are there to assist you to let you know, hey, you know what, where's a good location to put a restaurant in? Which area has the most foot traffic? I wish I had known that when I owned a cafe. I thought I had a great area, and lo and behold, there was no foot traffic. And we weren't around much longer than 2 years. So good to know the neighborhood business development centers in your area because they know what works for you. Then after you've contacted the neighborhood business development centers and perhaps your alderman's office, because they can assist you as well, then you can complete a restaurant startup worksheet, which is located on our website, so that you can prepare for meeting with one of our business consultants. Our business consultants, as Roxanne mentioned, provides concierge service for you. They're your single point of contact for business licensing and for your city services. So they're free of charge. You can meet with them at any time before you're ready or when you're ready to apply. It does get rather busy at Room 800, so we do suggest that you make an appointment, and you can do so online or calling our 74GO-BIZ line. Then after completing a restaurant startup worksheet, then before you actually sign a lease, it would behoove you to find out whether or not you can conduct business in that specific address, because there are zoning rules and regulations, and so just because you want to do business at a certain location doesn't mean that you can. So don't sign a lease, don't invest in a property until you know for sure that you can open your restaurant there. How do you do that? The Department of Zoning actually has a website, an online tool for you to be able to type in an address and find out what the zone is, or you can actually meet with a zoning representative here at room 800, and we'll go talk about that a little bit deeper later on. So depending on the site that you've chosen, and whether or not there's construction required or not. So if there's no construction, then the next step would be just to go meet with a business consultant. If not, then you will need to go through and get the appropriate permits so that you can do build-outs with the Department of Buildings. Once you've gotten the proper permitting and done your build-out, and concurrently, then you can meet with our business consultant so you can start the licensing process, where they will input your application and let you know what are the requirements of the license, which I'm going to let you know today. And also, too, depending if you're going to be putting up a sign in front of your establishment, anything that you put in front of your building that's on the public way will require a public way use permit, and the public way use unit is actually within our business center as well. So our business consultant will walk you over once they are done processing your application. Then the next step would be, if you did have a build-out and you wanted to have a rough inspection of your build-out, you can do so through the program as well. There's a link on the program on our website so that you can request an overview of your facility. After that, then the licensing process continues, and part of the licensing process requires an inspection of your facility. And who's going to be inspecting it all depends on your facility, but the health inspectors will be out there to take a look to make sure everything is in compliance. Then hopefully, once you pass your inspections, you obtain your business license, and only when you obtain your business license can you open your doors and start business. So hopefully you can start cooking and serving your clients within that time frame. So that's the process in a nutshell. We're going to do a deeper dive, as I mentioned, on the licensing process. And what are we going to be talking today? Specifically, first and foremost, we're going to talk about our department and the Small Business Center, introduce you to the services that we offer. Then we'll talk about the retail food business license and what it entails. Then we'll talk about the 3 simple steps to obtain a business license. Then how do you apply for the license? And then when you're applying, well, what are the requirements? Which then Jaren will be taking over and speaking specifically about the various health requirements. Then we're going to give you tips, common pitfalls that business owners sometimes go through because unfortunately they weren't aware of certain things. Then we'll talk about the different public way use permits, specifically the ones that apply to restaurants. Then we also will talk about the new permit intake center. One of the things that we'll be able to do now is take in any occupancy placard requirements or applications. Then discuss with you the various SBC resources, if you weren't aware already. And then hopefully, if we haven't answered everything that you had in mind, we will have a Q&A session to answer specific questions that you may have for your situation. And now, about BACP, or the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. The department is a combination department. It used to be 2 departments separate. That's Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. We joined them together because there were some services that kind of, melded together seamlessly. And what that allowed us to do is to take care of the regulation of businesses as well as taking care of consumer rights. Namely, what do? We provide licenses to businesses. Any business you see in the city of Chicago, they go through our department. We're the only licensing entity for the city of Chicago. And on our public vehicle side, we also license the limos and the cabs. We also provide business education and access to resources. As you know, this workshop is part of our education and outreach. Then we also enforce the municipal code and protect consumers from fraud. We have an adjudication side that does that. So that's the department in a nutshell. The unit that handles the licensing is the Small Business Center. And that is the business licensing division of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. It is your one-stop shop for business licensing, and hopefully it'll be a resource for you as an entrepreneur. As I mentioned, the one-stop shop, in it you can find your business consultant who you can meet for free of charge. Basically, they can process for you your new business license applications. And once your application has been processed and you've got your license, then if you need to make changes to your business license, you will see them as well. What they do is they perform case management. They are your single point of contact, and they will assist you through the various city processes and point you to various resources that are available to you. Then also too, as I mentioned, in our public way use unit, we will take care of your public way use permit application. If you have anything, say for example, like a sidewalk cafe that you want to put up, they will process that permit for you. And then obviously, once you've obtained your permit, if you have any changes, they also perform the maintenance of your City of Chicago business license account for public way use permitting. Now let's talk about the license that pertains to what you want to do, which is open a restaurant, right? First and foremost, the license requirement is a retail food license, and it is required for all businesses that prepare, serve, store, sell, or distribute at retail any article of food, drink, confection, or condiment used or intended for human consumption. So that's verbatim from the code, making sure that we didn't miss anything there. Now, mind you though, you won't need this license if you are just selling prepackaged, non-perishable food such as candy, gum, bottled water, soft drinks, etc., right? So that, for that purpose, it's a different type of license. What is the license fee for a retail food establishment? It depends on your square footage, really. From 0 to 4,500 square feet, it is $660. That's per establishment. From 4,500 to 10,000 square feet, it is $880 per establishment. And then lastly, if it's 10,000 square feet and above, it is $1,100 per establishment. So if you want to know how to compute the square footage of the establishment, the total area of the entire premises must be measured, and that includes the food service area, where you store the food, where you prepare it, as well as the dining areas if you have any. The license, as most of our licenses, have a 2-year term. So when it expires, if you wish to renew it, we will provide you a renewal notice in advance, 45 days in advance, to let you know that, hey, your business license is expiring, and license renewal is actually done online. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of your business location, a retail food license can only be issued to a commercial or industrial location, so no residential areas. And keep in mind, licenses are not transferable, okay? Just because there was a license in a previous location that you want to take over, there's no such thing as purchasing somebody else's license. You have to apply for your own business license. And then in order for us to provide you with the actual license certificate, and that's an example of what the certificate looks like, that you'll be posting proudly at your establishment. Unfortunately, if you have any outstanding debt with the city, you've got to take care of it first, like say, parking ticket and what have you. You got to take care of it first before we can provide you with the certificate. And then when do you pay for the license? Well, only if we can approve you for it. So we won't charge you for the fee unless we know for sure that we can provide you with the license, right? When do you pay it? At the end of the process. You can pay it if you walked into our business center and you did an application in person, then you will be paying at the cashier. If you applied online, which is the other way to apply, then you can pay online. Unless you decide to, in the middle of your application process, decide to continue and finish your application in person, then you will take care of it here at the cashier. Now, the 3 steps of obtaining a business license, any business license, right? We have that handout here for you as well, and it has a lot more information that what I'll be covering here, because it provides you with the address locations of the places where you will need to go to take care of certain things before you actually come in to apply. Namely, the first step that you should do is first determine your legal entity, right? Second is that you need to register that legal entity with the appropriate government agencies. So then that way it's a recognized business. Then the third step is actually that's when you come in and apply for your City of Chicago business license. Now, who here has already registered their business by chance? No? Okay. How was it? Was it pretty hard or easy or? It's relatively easy, right? Okay. However, you can procure the services of an attorney to assist you with that. But I believe, just like our business licenses, we try to make it as simple as possible so that you can do it yourselves, if you had the time, obviously. So for those of you who have not registered your business yet, or have not determined your legal entity, and are not familiar with the various entity types, we're going to go over some basic information about the various entity types. The most basic one is the sole proprietorship. It is an unincorporated business owned and run by one individual, right? Another type is a partnership, where it's a single business where 2 or more individuals share the ownership. Now, one of the more common ones is the corporation, where it is an independent legal entity owned by its shareholders. And that one you actually have to register. And then we also have a more seemingly more popular nowadays is a limited liability corporation, where it's a hybrid type of legal entity, where it provides you with the limited liability features of a corporation and the tax efficiencies and operational flexibility of a partnership. Then there's the non-for-profit corporation, where basically it's a corporation that conducts business for the benefit of the general public without shareholders and without a profit motive. Regardless of your business entity type, it doesn't matter to us, okay? As long as you've registered it appropriately, because we will be, as part of your license application process, asking you a series of questions, and depending on your entity type, we will need certain registration information. Namely, say for example, you decided that you wanted to operate as a sole proprietor or a general partnership, and then you decided to name your business entity other than your actual full name, right? Then you need to register that assumed name with the Cook County Clerk's assumed name department and obtain an assumed name certificate. Then let's say, for example, that you decided that you wanted to formulate a limited partnership or a corporation, an LLC, or a not-for-profit. Then you need to register with the Illinois Secretary of State, and when you do, they will provide you with what's called a file number. We will ask that of you as part of your license application process. So have that ready when you come in to apply. Also, regardless of your legal entity type, you will need an EIN, except for maybe the sole proprietor. It all depends, but you can go to the IRS's website, answer a couple questions, and even if you're a sole proprietor, depending on how you answer the questions, you may need an EIN. And the EIN is your employer identification number, and it is required for you to be able to pay and file your federal taxes. Then you also will need to go to the Illinois Department of Revenue to obtain what's called your account ID number. And that's what's given to you, so that basically when you register with the Illinois Department of Revenue, and this is for any entity type, because if you're conducting in the state of Illinois, then you need to obtain what's called a certificate of registration through the Illinois Department of Revenue, okay? So it all depends on your situation, but the information is provided in the handout so that you'll know where to go. We provided the addresses for you. So let's say that you've figured out what business entity you want to be, and then you've registered your business entity with the appropriate agencies. What's next, right? well, then you can apply for a business license. How do you do that? There are two ways to do it. One, you can apply online, or you can apply in person, as I mentioned previously. Now, right now, we are updating our online license application system. We're hoping it'll be ready soon. And basically, what it'll allow you to do is when you go to our SBC homepage, that's the Small Business Center homepage, at www.cityofchicago.org/SBC, there's a big button there that says apply for a license. When you click on that, it will take you to the online license application system. And in there, you will be able to apply for most license type, inclusive of which is the retail food license. Just to let you know, if you decide that there are other things that you need to apply for, or other business activities you want to conduct in your establishment, and some complex type of license applications will be required to finish in person. Say, for example, like if you want to sell liquor in your establishment. You can start the process online, but then you'll need to finish it in person because there are certain requirements that require you to come in. If you need assistance with the online license application process, you can contact our call center. Our business call center is 312-74-GO-BIZ, or that's 744-6249. And they are available during business hours to support you if you have any issues with the online license application. That's Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The in-person application process is here at our Small Business Center at room 800. This walk-in schedule there is from 8:30 to 4:30. The consultations typically take about 45 minutes or longer, depending on how complex your application is or how prepared you are with your documentation. So, an appointment with the BC is critical because it does get rather busy, and we would rather you spending your time wisely preparing for your business than waiting to be seen. So how do you schedule an appointment? You can do so online from our homepage. Go to our Contact Us page, and there's an online form you can fill out to schedule an appointment. Or again, call our Small Business Center call line. Now, what's the process when you apply online? So just want to show you the difference. The step one is you have to create, as with any system online, you create a user profile. After you create a user profile, then you'll answer some basic questions that the Department of Zoning needs to know so that they can zone your application appropriately. Once they've approved your application, or more so your business location address, you'll get an email notification saying you can continue. And once you do that, you can then fill in the rest of the application information that our business consultants will need to process your application. After they've approved you, then there's another email notification gets sent out and letting you know that you can then pay for your license application fee. As I mentioned before, we don't ask for you to pay for your application fee until we know for sure that you will be able to get your license. And you can pay for your application fee online if you're applying online. Then, obviously, there's going to be some inspection requirements, and your payment is what triggers the inspections. And you will be contacted when the inspections are done and they've been approved. The license certificate will be mailed to your business location address. It's generated after the inspections have been completed and then sent out to you. The difference with an in-person application, first and foremost, you would come in here to our triage, and we'd have you fill in what's called a business information sheet, which is your basic application information. Then our business consultant will input that information into the system and collects any required documents. So as opposed to the online app where you would upload your documents, with an in-person application, you will provide the business consultant with your required documents. Then the zoning part of the application occurs automatically, and once a decision is made and all requirements are met, then the license application is then printed and you sign it, and you'll be asked to pay for your license application fee, which triggers the inspections. It's the same as the online process, and after inspections, that's when your license certificate is then printed. So as you can see, there are parallels to the process. They're both somewhat the same. It all depends, and the time frame on how long this may take, it all depends on how prepared you are with your documentation. It could take maybe perhaps 10 days, depending, or more, because depending on how your inspections go, right? And then if there are any issues that you needed to fix, then it may delay the process that much longer. So it all depends on the preparation that you have before the application process, that you have all the required documents, then the preparation that you make to make sure your facility is in order. And then we try to process you accordingly, obviously, as quickly as possible through our system. Now, what are the standard application requirements? First and foremost, we're going to ask for you to provide us with your business legal and doing business as name, your ownership information, and your legal entity type. The stuff that I mentioned before. Then we'll ask for your business location, address, and square footage. Then we'll ask for your detailed description of all the business activities that you'll be conducting in that establishment. The business consultant needs to know that because they want to make sure that they provide you with a correct license. Hopefully, you should just need just one license, but depending on what you're going to be doing, you may need more. So they will let you know what you need. And then we'll also need a valid government-issued photo ID from all the applicants. So all the owners of the business will need to provide us with a copy of a valid current ID with your current home address. Then we will probably ask for your Illinois Secretary of State file number, then your EIN number, as well as your IDOR account ID number. What other requirements? Well, since this is a food establishment, you're going to need a food sanitation certificate, and Jaren can go over that in greater detail for you. There are perhaps maybe other zoning and parking requirements, and again, as I mentioned, depending if you're going to be putting a sign or a banner in front of your establishment, then you may need to get a sign permit, or if you're going to put a sidewalk cafe, then you need to obtain a sidewalk cafe permit. Also, as I mentioned, if you decide that you're going to be serving liquor in your establishment, then you need to apply for a liquor license. And if there's going to be entertainment in the establishment, then you may need to obtain a public place of amusement license. So it all depends. That's why it's important that you mention to your business consultant everything that you plan on doing in your establishment. So then that way you only make one trip, right? And you get all the licenses that you need. Now, if you decide that you may do certain things first, like just start off just as a restaurant, and then later on add the liquor or the public place of amusement functionality or activities, you can do that. You can always just start your business as just a restaurant, get your retail food establishment license, and then when you're ready, come back in and apply for the other licenses that you need. But say, for example, that you do want to obtain a liquor license, what other requirements will we need? Well, there is a 30-day public notice requirement for this type of license. There's also a liquor liability insurance requirement. We'll need a valid lease or proof that you own the property. We'll do a background check on owners and managers. We will need to obtain your legal entity documentation, as well as some financial documentation. And we'll need to see your floor plan, site plan, and occupancy placard. So as you see, depending on what license you're applying for, there may be more requirements. And our licenses are risk-based. They're depending on the activity that you're doing. The most basic one with the least amount of risk involved in terms of the risk to the consumer is typically what's called the limited business license. Then the next risk-based level of licensing are the regulated business licenses. And then after that, it's the specialty licenses. And the specialty licenses, like liquor, do require much more stringent type of requirements. Okay, but as noted, the liquor license and entertainment license requirements are not required for just a retail food establishment. Okay, so these are additional requirements if you decide to get these licenses. Now, as a reminder, and I mentioned previously, that before you decide that you want to sign a lease, please check to make sure that you can conduct the business that you want to do at that specific address, because we license addresses, okay? So it all depends on what address that you'll be conducting or where you'll be conducting business at. As I mentioned, there are tools that you may utilize. The zoning's website has an interactive tool that you may use. And once you find out the zone, there's a link to the business license zoning guide, which will explain to you what the end result is, because it will give you the zone of the address that you type in, and then you'll need to cross-reference that to find out if the activity you want to do is available in that location. And as I mentioned, we have a zoning representative in-house because we are your one-stop shop, and it would behoove you. So if you do fall in love with that one address and you really want to put your restaurant there, don't sign anything yet. Come by, see our zoning representative, and we'll let you know if that would be a good decision on your part. This is an example of the map, the interactive map that I had mentioned, and that's also what our zoning representative looks at. They'll take a look whether or not there's proper classification of the business activity in your application, whether or not you are in compliance with the use requirements, whether or not there are any parking requirements, or if proper building permits have been applied and issued. Because you can't just willy-nilly decide to renovate a place. There are rules and regulations in place that you have to obtain a permit first before you can do construction on the establishment. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jared, who's going to talk about the various health requirements.
Good morning. So that was a lot. I'm so glad they have a business consultant that helps them walk through the process. Business consultant walks you through the process. Because I knew all of that, and I'm still like, wow, that's a lot. And so when you get past all of that, then you get to the health department. And then, by the way, my name is Jaren, and when myself and Geraldine are in the same room, we become one person. I don't really know how that happens. The names are very close together. I'm the director of food protection. I'm going to talk all about the food inspection part of the process. So usually we have a person assigned down here at BACP that you will have a consultation with. But right now she's out. So in the interim, what is happening is the business consultant is bringing that information and sending it over to us at our building. So it is still happening. The consultations are still happening. They're just not happening in person. So we're still doing them. But the two things that we ask that you all bring to the table before you come to talk to us is that you know what your menu is. So if you don't have any idea what you want to make, we don't have anything to talk about. So you got to start off with, what do you want to make? What's your thing? What do you want to do? And how do you want to do it? So those are the two things we need to know before you get started. So once you know that, then we're ready to start the process. So Ed talked a little bit about the Chicago Food Service Sanitation Manager Certificate. Everybody know about that? No? Yes? No? Okay. So you must take a class. The class is an 8-hour class. It lasts all day. And you thought that was a lot of information? That class gives you tons of information. At the end, there's an exam. You pass that exam. And then you take that information over to Malcolm X and they issue you the City of Chicago certificate. That makes sense? Usually the manager is that person that is in charge. So that person that is in charge is going to be the person that needs that food service sanitation manager certificate. And one is required to be there anytime you are making potentially hazardous foods. The other thing is, which is new in the last year, which is that everybody else that handles food, so if you have any employees, those people need to have the food handler training. They can do that online. So everyone that handles food either needs to be a food service sanitation manager or they need to have food handler training. Two separate things. That's why there's 2 dots. Oh, and by the way, we're going to talk about 10 things. So these are 10 things. But I think there's 11 dots. So I apologize for that. So those are the first 2 things. And those are the things that you can do now. Because when I'm working on a project, I want to make sure that I'm always working toward my goal. I think we're going to ask questions at the end. I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I'll ask questions at the end. And then the next dots, I'm going to talk about what that space looks like. So the reason that you need to know what your menu is so that we know what the space needs to look like. Because if you're making gelato, you don't need the same thing as if you're making pizza, right? You don't need pizza ovens if you're scooping ice cream. So we need to know what the menu is so we can ensure that that space is what it needs to be for you to safely make that food product. So every place needs a 3-compartment sink. 3 compartments. Wash, rinse, sanitize, 3 compartments. You can substitute a commercial dishwasher, but if you substitute with the commercial dishwasher and that commercial dishwasher breaks, you got problems. You need a separate hand washing sink, and that hand washing sink needs to be in every place where food is being prepared. So your preparation area, dishwashing area, your bar areas, you need hand sinks to allow people to wash their hands. And then you need a mop sink or a utility sink so you can dump out your mop water. And that cannot happen in the 3-compartment sink or the hand sink. If you have potentially hazardous foods, you have to have refrigeration. So your refrigeration should be effective and enough to hold all of the food in the refrigerator at 40 degrees or below. And if you need freezers, because any of your product is held frozen, the freezer should hold your food at 0. All cooking equipment should be under the hood, an exhaust fan, an exhaust hood, and then we do that in cooperation with the Department of Buildings. So they have ventilation inspectors that have everything down to a science. When we take a look at the plans or we take a look at the inspection, we just make sure that all of the equipment is under the hood. They decide the size and design. There must be an employee restroom. Employees have to go to the bathroom. If based on the number of employees that you have, sometimes you need to just have one for both gender, and sometimes you need to have 2 based on the number of employees that you have. If you're a very small business, 1 restroom should be enough. And then the last 2 things. You must have pest control. So, and that pest control provider must come out twice a year. They must provide you with a service contract, and then you must keep that information in the logbook on site for inspection. And then you must have a contract for commercial garbage removal. So those are the top 10 things to walk away with today. So how do the inspections work? Have you all probably all have a feeling about health inspections. Everybody has a feeling about health inspections, positive, negative, and different. But what I do want to talk about is how that process works just a little bit. I won't go real deep, but I'll talk about it just a little bit. So violations are broken out into 3 categories: critical, serious, and minor. Those critical things are going to be inadequate refrigeration and inadequate temperatures. If food is at the wrong temperature, makes people sick, right? Inadequate or inappropriate handling practices. If you handle the food wrong, you can make people sick. If you don't wash your hands, you can make people sick. If there's a rodent infestation or any type of pest infestation or lack of water or hot water. So those are really those top 5 things that really lead directly to foodborne illness or food poisoning. So when we have critical violations, those things must be they must be corrected immediately. If they're not corrected immediately, it can end in closure because those things lead directly to foodborne illness. And then when we close you, then you have to make all of the corrections prior to you being able to reopen, because we definitely want to make sure that your business is safe for operation and food preparation when you start up the next time. That make sense? The second type is serious. Those serious violations are things that need to be corrected soon. So they're not going to cause people to become ill immediately, but they do lead to foodborne illness over time. And those things include if you thaw improperly, if you reserve food from one customer to another. So can you imagine if you go and you have bread and butter, and then you don't eat all of your bread, and then they take the bread from one table and then bring it over to another table after everybody's touched it and played in the bread, and then you get old bread from other places. So we don't want to do that. And then if you have improper storage, et cetera. So those types of violations we consider to be serious violations, and we want to make sure that those are addressed. So when we mark serious violations, we give you time to make corrections. When you make those corrections, we give you a reinspection date, and we do an inspection to ensure that you're in compliance. And then the last type of violations are minor violations, which usually have to do with building, places that are unclean, floors, walls, and ceilings. Those types of things don't usually lead to foodborne illness. However, they are required to be corrected. What will happen is if you don't correct the violations when they are marked, they are at the next inspection increased to the next type of violation. So for example, if you have a minor violation, you have a hole in the wall, the inspector comes out and says, you have a hole in the wall. They mark it on your report, says you have 90 days to make that correction. They come back for your next routine inspection, you still have a hole in the wall, then it will be marked as a serious violation because it wasn't corrected. So that is how that process works. And then they'll give you time to make that correction. And if you don't do it, then the next time it is a critical violation. So non-compliance could equal a critical violation. So we definitely want to make sure that all of our food establishments stay in compliance. So once you get open, over time you want to stay in compliance. I think Ed talked a little bit about risk. So we talk about risk as well. And how we talk about risk for restaurants is that we have risk categories for the type of food that is being prepared and how it is being prepared. So our risk ones would be full service restaurants. So if you are a full service restaurant, you cook steak and you get the steak in and it's fresh, and then you cool it down and you cook it and you serve it, then that is full service restaurant would be our risk ones. Risk twos would be more like your fast food restaurants where everything is frozen pretty much. They cook to serve, they don't hold anything, everything is pretty in and out pretty quickly. And then our risk threes would be your type of convenience stores with all prepackaged food items. So we break our facilities down in that way because that dictates how often we will conduct our inspections there. I didn't realize I was like dropping out right.
You are done for now. And for additional information, we actually printed out this Retail Food Establishment License Guide to Your Initial Health Inspection. It has a lot more in detail. Jared went over your top 10 tips, but there are a lot more information, so be sure to have a copy of that with you. Now, depending, should you be able to start your business and then decide you wanted to expand or update your business once you've obtained your license, there are certain things to keep in mind. Again, just like in your startup mode, when you wanted to build something out, well, if you need to expand your current location, then something to keep in mind is that you also will need to contact the Department of Buildings and go through their permit process. Also, once you've obtained your license and there's information that's changing, be it on your legal entity type, or actually, since you're a restaurant, if your menu changes, you will need to inform us, namely actually inform the Department of Health, because your risk assessment may change. It all depends, right? So if you do decide to change your operations and you're not sure, call us. We'll let you know whether or not there's anything that we need or not. It all depends, right? So please let us know. The common pitfalls that most entrepreneurs make, or what we've heard in the past, was that first and foremost, they tend to sometimes sign a lease without considering the zoning or perhaps even liquor license restrictions. So just because, as I mentioned earlier, that there's a restaurant there right now that's able to serve liquor as well, doesn't mean that you can do exactly the same thing when you obtain that space. So please check first, right? Licenses, as I mentioned, are not transferable, so you can't buy that other businesses' licenses, be it the retail food or the liquor license. It's not sellable. You have to apply for it on your own. So do keep that in mind. If somebody's telling you otherwise, they're lying. Yeah, because we've heard it. We've heard all the stories. Beginning construction prior to obtaining a permit. Please do not start breaking down walls without you first obtaining the proper permits, okay? Then, assuming that previous owner's zoning designation applies, that's what I mentioned previously. Also, not paying outstanding debt to the city, because unfortunately, even though you may renew your business license, we can't give you the certificate unless you take care of your city debt. Then, not addressing any outstanding building or license violations. Making sure that before you actually sign a lease or purchase a property, make sure that there's no debt behind it too, because you don't want that transferred over to you. Also, don't forget that there are other non-city licenses that might be required in order for you to actually obtain your business license. Say, for example, the food sanitation certificate that Jaren was talking about, you will need to obtain that before you come in because we're going to ask it of you. Also, say, for example, you wanted to get the liquor license. Well, you need to obtain a state liquor license as well. So those are examples of what you're going to need that your business consultant will go over with you in detail, right? They will let you know everything that you'll need to know and everything you might need in order for you to process your license application. As I mentioned before, there are, depending if you're going to put up a sign, a need for a public way use permit. And the public way use unit is the unit that handles the permitting of sidewalks or activities on a sidewalk. And basically, the reason for it is so that we can reduce unnecessary congestion and unnecessary clutter on the sidewalks, as well as keep the public way clear and safe for pedestrians. That snapshot right there is the cover page of the Sidewalk Cafe application program. That starts in March and ends in December, early December, and basically all the sidewalk cafes that you see outside there when you're walking around in the city went through the application process to be able to put a sidewalk cafe out there in front of their establishment. And you have to have a retail food license in order for you to obtain a sidewalk cafe permit. Also, we now intake applications for other things outside of just business licenses. Say, for example, the occupancy sign, something that you may need to post in your establishment. We can begin the process of providing that for you by taking in the application and then sending it to the appropriate place. Now, there are various resources available for you that Roxanne mentioned earlier, and they're all located at our Small Business Center homepage, and that snapshot there is our homepage. And on the left-hand side, under the SBC resources section, are links for you to find, for example, if you need assistance with business registration. If you haven't done that yet, you don't know where to go, well, that's where you start, right? Using our 3 steps to business licensing, but also you can find it there. Then, if you want to find a location, if you're having difficulties looking for a location, the site locator that Roxanne mentioned earlier, there's a link, so it will take you directly to the World Business Chicago site that contains a site selector tool. So they can assist you in finding a location if you haven't found one already. Also, what Roxanne talked about, financial assistance, well, click on that link, and depending on the size of the financial assistance that you may be needing, there are different agencies that can assist you. So click on the appropriate link under financial assistance resources, and you will be taken to the various agency information that you'll need so that you can contact them and find out if they can assist you. Then we also have business education options. It's always good to know as much as you can. And unless you have been in the food industry before, there is a learning curve, and I found that out the hard way. I opened a cafe not knowing much except for the fact that, hey, I like cafes. I like to drink coffee. I like to hang out in it. Maybe I'd like to have a cafe myself. Wow, did I, have a huge learning curve. Because unfortunately, I didn't have the food industry experience, and I didn't hire anybody with food industry experience. And my business partners didn't know either. We knew the administrative side, but somebody's got to take care of the specialty. And so that was a mistake on my part because I didn't even know about the resources here. And that's what our, Geraldine's group is responsible for, is the education and outreach is much, much greater now, to the extent that, you all found out about this workshop. And I wish I had known that at the time when I had my business. So we also have neighborhood resources that I mentioned to you. They're there for you. As a matter of fact, they obtain funds from us so that we can help you. So we unfortunately are not out there, but they are. So they're out there specifically in your neighborhoods to assist you. There's a link there. Find one for your specific neighborhood, and they will assist you as best as they can. And then also, once you've started and you're growing, or you just need assistance in hiring or training your employees, we have information there as well on our website. I was going to show that to you. Unfortunately, my internet connection here is not working well, so all we have is a snapshot, but I trust that you guys have better internet connection. And then also too, we have our call center, so that if ever that you need assistance and you just have a question, and want to meet with a business consultant, please call our 31274-GO-BIZ line, and they can schedule an appointment for you. Again, seeing and talking to a BC is free of charge. They're there for you, and they can help prepare you so that you're much better when you're ready in terms of applying. So you must be better prepared so that your process will just go that much smoother and quicker. And then also too, once you obtain your business license and you need to renew your license, you're going to require you're going to need your account number that we will provide you when we give you a license. That's your business license account number and your PIN. Well, our call center handles that too if you forgot your PIN or you need to reset it. So that's just some basic information, but please do check the website and find out all the resources that's available to you, because there is a whole wealth of information that I think would benefit you before you get started. That only prepares you, and hopefully, we hope then that you would be successful and a great establishment for the city. So we want to thank you for taking the right first steps to getting your business licensed, and make sure that you have all the information that we provided for you here. I believe Jaren printed out what I mentioned earlier is the restaurant startup guide, which has all the information, inclusive of which is, say for example, you want a pre-inspection, you want somebody to take a look at your establishment first before you do build out. You can find out information there, as well as a whole wealth of other information. So what we're going to do now is open the floor up for Q&A. I know you have a lot of questions, probably more for Jaren. So we'll take questions now. Yes, ma'am.
When you operate out of a food kitchen, you don't have to go through a lot of these things because the emphasis is on the food kitchen, correct?
Are you talking about a shared kitchen, like a commercial kitchen?
Yes.
Did you want to?
Oh, sure. I thought you were gonna take shared kitchen.
I'm gonna after you,
Okay,
please.
I'll switch sides. So if you are going to obtain a shared kitchen user license, which I hope Ed will talk about, then you also have to have a contract or an agreement with a commercial kitchen that has a shared kitchen operator license, shared kitchen
If it's a standalone shared kitchen,
Yes.
then it's a shared kitchen operator license.
operator license.
And if you have a retail food establishment license, or you're a restaurant and you want to lease out your kitchen space on your non-operational times, then you need to obtain a shared kitchen supplemental license. And then the people who rent it from you will have to obtain a shared kitchen user license.
Okay.
And so there's a one-page handout about that. I think Geraldine might sneak out and get one for you, because I know we just said a lot, but that one-pager breaks it down really nicely.
So there are things that you need to worry about to be licensed for. Okay?
Good morning, thank you.
I'll come right to you next.
Joshua Vitale with Chuck Please here in Chicago. I'm a restaurant consultant here in Chicago, and I have clients that don't have a lot of experience seeing me all the time. You know, what's the best way to market and advertise here in Chicago? How can I get involved in your program and help teach restaurateurs or startup restaurateurs how to market and advertise affordably?
Well, that's not really a question for me. I'm gonna let Ed take that, because I
Sure.
think you guys have a workshop, right?
Sure, absolutely. We have numerous workshops actually, and Jaren can speak to this, in terms of helping entrepreneurs learn how to market themselves better. There are various workshops, from using social media to traditional media, and then also to inclusive of which is in their business plan, preparing accordingly to also have marketing as part of a key component of their business plan. Because if you don't get the word out, people don't know you're out there, that will be, unfortunately, your downfall. So you can open a business, but unfortunately, if you don't get the word out and people don't come, don't know you're there, then it's going to be difficult for you to survive even just your first few months. Geraldine, and before we let you have your follow-up?
Connect with you guys to talk about hosting a workshop or something like that?
Geraldine would be, the right person for that. Well, we continue to look for opportunities to assist our entrepreneurs with free workshops from experienced individuals in those respective fields. So, say for example, if you need help with assistance with financing, we have finance specialists, experts in that field to host the workshop for you. And same thing for marketing. We have experienced people who are already doing it and are successful in their field to help assist you in how you can be successful in marketing your respective restaurants. Thank you. Good question. And say hello to David for me.
I will, thank you.
Yes, I'm going to go to this side and then I'll go to you. Yes, sir.
On the liquor end, when you want to either do a BYOB, does that have to be written anywhere in the permit issuing, or is it something that maybe you start without, then maybe you say, oh, I'm going to introduce a BYOB?
Yeah, there's stipulations on that, and you have to be careful on how you conduct your BYOB. There is no specific licensure for BYOB. However, you should have insurance for it. And what I think would be best is when you go through your licensing process for your restaurant, ask the business consultant what are the specific requirements for BYOB, so that you are in compliance and making sure that you aren't going beyond what's allowed. Because then you may need to obtain a liquor license. So there's a line, and so we want to make sure that you don't cross that line, right? But main thing though, you gotta have insurance. I promise this gentleman, I'll be right with you. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what the health department position is on sous vide. I
What
have
are-
bought some equipment, but the manufacturer told me I could use it, but I was having a hard problem finding out what the city wanted to require.
Sure. Our position is, a HACCP plan is required. Do you know what a HACCP plan
Yes,
is?
I do.
Yes, that is it. And that you follow the processes to ensure that the way that you are handling the food is going to be safe. So we have no issue with sous vide.
One
Yes.
quick question on the same thing. If you do a major renovation,
Yes,
you need to have the inspections in order for it to go, is that correct?
that is correct. And you have to have the building inspections. If you have to pull a permit for buildings, you have to have the DOB inspections as well as the health inspections.
And what we try to do is, because multiple departments may need to work together so that you all can come out at the same time. That's what Roxanne was mentioning earlier, the task force.
Right, so they coordinate, they're no
We-
business.
Yeah, so they don't come out there in several days, they all can come out in the same day. All right? And that's why it's also important to keep your contact information current with our system, so then we make sure that we can call you. Yeah, because, if you give us if the numbers change, then we try to call you, then we can't really set up an appointment, right? Let me go back, sir.
How much is the fee for the entertainment license and public walkway permit?
I don't have that with me, it's on our website unfortunately, but I can get that for you
All right.
later on. No, it's on our Small Business Center webpage. You just click on apply for a license, and then there's a laundry list of all the licenses on there. Unless you remember the application fees, I don't remember them. Yes, ma'am, back there.
I have two questions. One is for licensing, one is for health. First for health, why is there two separate food sanitation certificates? I was told there was one for Illinois, and then if you want to sell in Chicago, you have to get one for Chicago.
Absolutely. There is a City of Chicago ordinance that requires that everyone who handles food, that each establishment, as we talked about, have one person that has a City of Chicago manager certificate. And there are some rules that are different within the City of Chicago that are not the same in the rest of the state and the rest of the country for that matter. So we are making the assumption that if you obtain the City of Chicago one, that you also have gained that information about those differences so that you are able to actually run your establishment in the City of Chicago following the City of Chicago rules.
I can understand that, but we also live in Illinois, so.
But at least you can gain it by reciprocity. So if
So
you
you
have
to get
Illinois,
two separate certificates. Say if you want to sell in Chicago, but you want to do a farmer's market, you want to go someplace else.
that is correct, because each jurisdiction has their own requirements. So if you have the Illinois, though, you can gain the City of Chicago by reciprocity. You don't have to take an additional class.
Does that include front of the house as well, or just back of the house? Handling food is what you're prepping and cooking, or is it serving it?
I have to break that question down into two to make sure I answer it correctly. So the person that is in charge is gonna have their certified food manager, and the City of Chicago certified food manager, and that's what I was just talking to her about. The other certificate is the food handler certificate, which is just a certificate. It is a quick training online. They can print it out. That's the only one that they can print out online. The state of Illinois defines a food handler as anyone that touches the food, touches dishes, or anything that is related to the food. So that is the only place that I would think would be like your janitor, if your janitor does nothing but cleaning, and your host if they do nothing but hosting.
But servers and bartenders.
Servers, bartenders, and every other position will be considered a food handler, and then they would need to take that online training.
Okay, and my second question is, in addition to having the retail business license, what if you're going to have a food truck, or you want to have like a kiosk, or you want to do like farmers markets, what other, are there any other special permits you specifically have to have?
Sure. Actually, I was able to pull up the page.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So you said, I'll look at yours in a minute, but since food related was asked, so I'm going to click on food. And these are the various, it's probably hard to see from where you're at, the various food licenses that we have there. But essentially, the retail food establishment license allows you to conduct as a restaurant in a building, right? It's stationary. If you want to operate as a food truck, there are mobile food vehicle licenses. One is the mobile food dispenser license, where you sell prepackaged food. Then there's the mobile food preparer license, where you can cook on board. Those are the two food truck licenses that we have. So in order for you to operate in the city of Chicago with a food truck, you have to have one or the other. Okay?
For instance, if you were,
Now, there are other food license, mobile food licenses. Say, for example, that you needed to, you mentioned a kiosk. Depending on where the kiosk is, there's a, like say for Navy Pier, we do have a kiosk license for there. If you're talking about selling frozen desserts on a 3 or 4-wheeled vehicle or non-motorized vehicle, we have a license for that. So depending on what type of mobile food activity you're doing, we have various licenses, and then you'll need to comply with those, and your vehicle has to comply with those as well.
okay, say for instance, you wanted to do like baked goods,
Mm-hmm.
and you just want to sell the baked goods, you won't be preparing it on the truck or anything, say I want to use a commercial kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
so is there any,
Where are you going to be selling it?
I want to use like that, a school, like Washburn Trade School, I want to use their kitchen
Right,
to make
right.
my goods,
Mhm.
and then like sell it on a truck or have a stand somewhere.
Sure. So for that example, so in order for you to utilize, because you know you can't cook at home and sell it, right? That's illegal. Everybody knows that. You can't cook at home and sell it. What you need to do is utilize, yes, you need to utilize, yeah. Some people are like, what? Yeah, that's why I repeated it. What you need to use is a commercial kitchen that's licensed that as a shared kitchen, and this is the topic that you had broached earlier, and there's more information on this handy dandy handout. So that establishment needs to obtain a shared kitchen license, or if it's a restaurant, again, leasing it, a shared kitchen supplemental license, and then you need to get what's called a shared kitchen user license to bake your goods. Now, that would enable you to sell your goods at, say, that said shared kitchen or shared kitchen supplemental if they have a space for you, or you could sell it wholesale to other establishments. But once you decide to sell it in a truck, then now you become a mobile food dispenser. You need to obtain the mobile food dispenser license.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sir, he's been waiting for a while, sorry.
As a restaurant, if I wanted to sell produce to members of the community, in other words, sell the same produce I purchased for my restaurant for retail, does that fall under the same license as the retail food license, or is that separate license?
I
What-
think it's the same. I think you could sell whole uncut produce and prepared foods using your retail food license.
Right, because based on the definition, it sounded very similar.
Yes, depends on where you're selling it though. Is it within the establishment?
It's within the establishment.
Not in a cart outside. right?
And
Because that requires a different license. But within your establishment, your retail food will be fine.
So you've been, for example, you've been to some of the ethnic grocery stores, and then in the back they'll have a restaurant
Yes.
where you can go and you can pick out your salsas, etc. But in the back you could also get a tamale. They have one license, a retail food license.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
I had a question for Aaron.
Yes.
About that reciprocity.
Yes.
I think I heard you say that if they have a state health sanitation certificate,
Yes.
there's reciprocity.
Yes.
That you don't have to take the course.
Again, yes.
And so how would you implement that reciprocity? Would you go down to Malcolm X, show
Yes.
them the state certificate, and they would print out the Chicago certificate?
Yes. And $35.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
Question for Timberwolves.
Sir.
The size and prices for the retail food license, can you go over that one more time? Yeah, I missed it.
Sure. It's probably easier to show it to you. Oop, this way.
Will this presentation be available online?
The video will be, but
What would it take to get the slides?
actually all the information here is in that packet. We just kind of made it, a little prettier, but that one actually has more detail. So,
The restaurant startup guide. The one you gave out?
mm-hmm.
The restaurant startup guide.
I got it.
Oh, there it is. All right. There you go. I don't know if you can see it. 0 to 4,500 square feet is $660 per establishment. So if you have like a chain, each location has to have a license. 4,500 to 10,000 square feet is $880, and then 10,000 square feet and above is $1,100. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
If someone's considering opening a restaurant in either here or another major city like New York City, for example, can you comment on the advantages of opening a restaurant in Chicago would be over another major city, whether it be the process involved? I mean, you guys seem to have played it out pretty well, which is nice. And are you familiar with other cities and how this might be an easier process, or how would you convince someone to start here as opposed to somewhere else?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do look at our fellow cities and try to utilize best practices. We try to learn from each other. We actually meet from time to time and talk about our various processes from various things, and try to see what they do that works best for them and what works for us. Unfortunately, it's not really comparing apples to apples because, as you probably know, each municipality is different, and the rules that we work with are different from theirs. Say, for example, just some of their licensing is state regulated as opposed to the city, whereas for us, it's us. We're the only licensing agency in Chicago. You go to LA, it's LA County that handles the health functionality. With the city of Chicago, it's us. So we have the luxury. So if you were to have a selling point, our one-stop shop allows us truly the luxury of being a true concierge for the restaurateur, because you don't have to go to multiple entities to be able to open your business. We'll take you through the entire process all in-house, right? And then two, we try to provide you with the resources, and then you are dealing with the greatest culinary capital city in the world now, right? So I don't know what else to say. You're in the best city for it.
I was going to say, I was like, I'm going to jump in and say something.
Go
And you
ahead.
said it all. That was it?
I'm sorry.
That was it. The concierge service, because our licensing comes from one department, it allows them to bring all of the departments together. So you get task force inspections, you get one person to walk you through the entire process. You don't have to figure out who you need to talk to at buildings and who you need to talk to at health, because they're going to do that for you. We have conversations from the health department perspective with New York and LA all the time, and that is the one thing that we do that is significantly different from both of those other places. So I say that the licensing process is much shorter. So if you are ready, We are ready. We're very responsive. So when people come to us with all of their documents in place and all of their processes and procedures and everything done, they get through the process super fast.
Why don't other cities take notes from you guys about, like how to?
They do.
I was gonna say, we talk about,
Yeah, we talk to each other. When new ordinances come out, new licenses come out, we first do a peer city research to see what the other cities are doing, because we obviously would want to try to provide our city of Chicago entrepreneurs with the best possible option, right? And we want to make sure that when we roll it out, hopefully if other cities have worked out the kinks, then we will take that and utilize it in our ordinance so that what we're providing you, hopefully, is the best solution. But then there's always that, you can't cover everything. So then what allows us to do is we can also modify the ordinance to make it work as best as possible for the entrepreneur and also the city that we serve, right? So it goes both ways. People actually contact us, and because sometimes we lead the way on some of the regulations that aren't there yet. There are emerging businesses that our old regulations don't cover. So we take a look to see what other cities are doing. And if they're not doing it, then we lead the charge.
Last question.
Any others? Great. Well, thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.